So we've already learned a lot about the different types of cells that exist in living organisms, and we've learned about the parts of those cells. Today, what we're going to talk about is just kind of more specifically or generally two categories of cells: generalized and specialized cells. And if you know what these words generalized and specialized means, it probably already makes sense what these lessons are about. So before we start, we're just going to kind of group organisms into one of two categories. And this is pretty broad and general, but organisms can either be unicellular or multicellular. So unicellular organisms, these are organisms that are one single cell. So the entire organism is made of one entire cell. And for us, we kind of have two categories of them. Prokaryotes like bacteria, and protists, which are single-celled eukaryotes. So sometimes, like, if you ever look through a microscope into pond water, you see those little things swimming about. Those are all single-celled organisms, unicellular organisms. The entire organism is made of one cell. And you can see here's a little bacteria. This bacteria is one entire cell. And then we have multicellular organisms, which is the opposite. They're made of many cells that work together. So animals, plants, and funguses are all made of many cells working together. You are made of trillions of billions of cells that are stacked next to each other and placed next to each other, and they all communicate and talk with each other to make up one large organism. So you can either be unicellular or multicellular. And being either unicellular or multicellular is going to determine what kind of type of cells you have, whether you have generalized or specialized cells. So a good rule of thumb is if you're looking at a unicellular organism, those cells of the unicellular organism are what we call generalized. Now, generalized means that it can perform many functions or jobs. You can think of it as the statement, it wears many hats. Generalized means it can do all sorts of things. For a cell, this might mean it can digest food molecules, it can get energy, it can move, it can sense its environment. Those cells can do every job. I liken it to an SUV. If you think about an SUV, these are general purpose cars that are designed to do many jobs, right? They can go off-road or on-road. You can fill the trunk up with lots of groceries or your skis or snowboards. You can take a bunch of friends to the mall. This car can do a lot of things, and we'll see how that compares. One note about generalized things or generalized cells, but specifically generalized things, is even though they can do many jobs, they don't do any of them especially well. Another example you can think of is if you think about your elementary school teacher. Your elementary school teacher was generalized. They taught you all sorts of subjects. They taught you, biology. They taught you mathematics. They taught you English. Your elementary school teacher taught you all those subjects, but they weren't really good at teaching anyone. They just taught a little bit of each subject, so you got well-rounded, but nothing really specifically. So you can think of a unicellular organism has all these parts, so it can do all these jobs. The question is why, and if you think about it, well, if you're a unicellular organism, your cells have to be generalized because that one cell needs to do all the jobs to keep you alive because you're made of just that one cell. If you're a little bacteria on the table, your one cell is it. That's all you have, so it has to do every single job that you need to sustain life. Now let's compare that to a multicellular organism, something that's made of many cells. So if you're a multicellular organism, your cells are what we call specialized, meaning that they don't perform many jobs. It means that they perform one job, and they perform one job very, very well. And you can think of this like a garbage truck. If we go back to our car example, a garbage truck is specifically designed to do one thing. It's designed to pick up garbage and drive it to the dump. Now, you think about this car, it's not very good for other things. You wouldn't want to use it to carry your groceries. You wouldn't want to bring your friends to the mall in it. It's a car that does one thing and one thing only. It's very specialized. It does that one thing very well, but that's all it really does. So they can do their one job very well. However, specialized cells, they're incapable of doing other jobs. If you think about your body, we're composed of many specialized cells. We have some cells in our stomach that do the job of digestion. We have cells in our eyes that do the job of sensing our environment and sensing light. We have nerve cells that transport signals throughout our body. muscle cells that help us move. All those cells do one job. They do it very well, but they only do that one job. So the question is, if we're a multicellular organism, we have all these specialized cells that do specific jobs. Well, why is that? Well, if you think about having many cells, if you can devote certain cells to do certain jobs, those cells can work together, and together all the jobs can get done. Unlike a unicellular organism that only has one cell, that one cell has to do all the jobs. Since you have so many cells, you can divide the jobs up, and together all the cells get all the jobs done. You can think about this going back to my teacher example. I said your elementary school teacher taught you every subject: science, math, English. They were generalized. But then you go to high school, you have all your teachers who are specialized. You have a science teacher that just teaches you science, a math teacher that just teaches you math, a history teacher that just teaches you history. But because you rotate through a schedule and you have many teachers, all the jobs get done, or all those subjects get taught to you. Unlike in elementary school, you only have that one teacher, so they have to teach you everything. Multicellular organisms can divide those jobs up. So just looking at it broadly, pretty general rules, but easy to remember. Unicellular organisms, things like bacteria, their cells are generalized. They can do all sorts of jobs because they only have one cell, and that one cell needs to do all the jobs. It needs to respirate, it needs to get nutrition and food, needs to get rid of waste. Multicellular organisms made of many cells, their cells are specialized because they can divide the jobs up. That's the general difference between generalized and specialized cells in unicellular and multicellular organisms.